Welcome back, friends. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really cute foundational paper pieced snowflake. Now, if you've never done foundational paper piecing before, I want you to watch this video because I think you're really going to enjoy the process. I'm going to take you through step by step and show you exactly how to put each of the pieces together. Get started, I want to show you something that's really important when it comes to foundational paper piecing, and I think that this will help you understand how it's all laid out and how it works. So you're going to print out your template from your pattern and you've got all these pieces, right? So for each section of the snowflake, there are 6 sections. There's 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom. So you're making 6 triangles essentially. You've got this is one piece, this is another piece, and each one of those triangles is made up of 3 separate pieces of paper for your paper pieced pattern. And what I want to show you is how each one is laid out. So you've got A, B, and then C. And within each one are numbers. So you've got C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, A1, A2, A3, and B1 and B2. Okay, so I'm going to set down these pieces because it's the same process throughout. And this is what you need to wrap your head around for foundational paper piecing. It is essentially sew by number. So that means you sew in the order of the numbers. So you always start with number 1, regardless of what that letter is. That's just how the pieces go together. But so you've got C1 and C2, then C3, C4, and C5. So you sew in the order of those numbers. And if you can remember that you just go in order of the numbers, one section at a time, it's really, really easy. So I'm going to show you how I do it. And I think you're really going to love this method. Okay, you're going to flip over your paper because you're placing your fabric on the back and you're sewing on the front. Keep that in mind the whole time. So start with number 1, lay your fabric right side up. And then we're going to put the second piece right side down. So the right sides are facing each other. And I'm lining them up so that when we sew over the line, we'll have a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And that when we open up those pieces, it will cover everything on the paper. So I always cut my pieces bigger than what I think they're going to need, especially with this pattern because there are some angles here. So just cut your pieces bigger than what you think you're going to use. So go ahead and sew along the line and then you fold your paper back, and then you can use a ruler and you want to leave a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So trim off anything on the outside of that, 1/4 inch, and make sure you don't cut into the paper. Then fold it open, fold your 2 pieces of fabric. So now we're going to go to number 3 and we're going to lay down this piece of fabric right over that, and then we're going to sew on the back side. So we flipped it over. We're going to sew on the line between 2 and 3, and you just stitch along those lines. It does help to shorten up your stitch length to about a 1.5. Now again, we're going to fold back the paper. Do that before you open your fabric. So fold it back, then use your ruler, trim off everything but the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance there. Let that hang out. Then lay your paper flat, fold open your fabric, and you go to the next piece. You just keep doing this until all of your pieces are covered. It's very repetitive, and that's what helps you learn foundational paper piecing is you're doing the same steps over and over again. That's what finally makes it click. And don't worry, you guys, in making this pattern, I still sewed some things on wrong, and I've been doing this for 2 years. So we all mess up foundational paper piecing. It's just you have to just really be thinking about what you're doing. And so if you screw up, don't worry about it. So now we're trimming off the excess again, opening up our paper, opening up the fabric, and then adding on that next piece. And you sew in order of the numbers. So it's basically sew by number. You start at number 1, you go to the last number, whatever it is. And I am working on the C panel for this snowflake. I recommend in the pattern you start with A. It honestly doesn't matter. You can do all your C's first, all your A's first, whatever you want to do. And what I like to do is I like to take all my C panels and make all of them. And then I like to take all 6 of the B panels and make all of those. Just because it helps me just get in the groove of making each one. So now here I am sewing the last piece onto this C panel, which is number 5. So I'm sewing down along that final line and it's sewing over all the other pieces that we've attached. You're going to fold back your paper, use your ruler, and leave that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, trim off all that excess and just brush it off to the side. I do find I'll dig through these scrap piles as I go and use some of the bigger pieces as I make the rest of my snowflake. Now fold the rest of your fabric open. I like to give it a good press with my iron here, and the paper is still attached. We don't take that off just yet. And now we're going to trim around the dotted line. So remember, you're sewing on the solid lines, you're trimming on the dotted line. So now we're trimming through both the paper and the fabric. We're trimming off the excess fabric, the excess paper, because this is the exact shape you're going to want when you go to put your snowflake pieces together. Now we're going to repeat this process for all of the C, B, and A pieces for the snowflake. So get all of that done and then bring those pieces back, and I'm going to show you how to put them together. So for each of the 6 triangles that make up the entire snowflake, you have 3 pieces, A, B, and C. Okay, so you're going to lay them out just like this. In this order, A is the smallest, B is the middle, C is the top. And you're going to lay C and B right sides together, matching up your edges and your top and your bottom. You can kind of see, and you put them together. And if you've trimmed properly, when you sew on the line on either B or C, it doesn't matter. It will sew right on the line on the other side as well. Okay, so go ahead, open that up. You can see I've sewn through all the layers. So we're opening it up, and now we're going to lay A down on B, right sides of your fabric together. Don't worry about the paper. You can sew right through all of that. And then line up your edges and take it over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew piece A to piece B. Right down that line, and if your edges are matched up properly, and you can pin or clip here if you want to. I generally don't, but you certainly can if it helps. So now this is all 3 pieces sewn together. So now we need to make 6 of this exact same piece here. So that's our first triangle that we're going to put together for our snowflake. I can already see it coming together. So I like to give my pieces a good little press, and then I line up 3 of them, because what I like to do is sew 2 together and then add a third to make half, and then I repeat that to make the other half. Now, another little tip that I do that I'll share with you, before I sew the 3 big pieces together, I'm just tearing off the paper that's in the seam allowances. So where A and B and C are connecting, I'm just tearing off that bit of paper. I like to leave the rest on as my guidelines when I'm sewing the rest of the pieces together, but this just makes removing it at the end a little bit easier, and you have a little less bulk that you're sewing through. So go ahead if you want to, you just fold it back and tear it off, because the stitching that you did with your sewing machine will perforate those edges. So it makes it tear off really, really nicely. And when we get to the back side and tear all the paper off, because we've done this step a little bit early, it makes the rest of it tear off very, very easily. Now we're going to grab 2 of the 3 pieces and we're going to lay them together. Now your white points, those are the middle points of the snowflake, should be together. So go ahead and lay them right sides together, and then make sure your points and your edges are all matched up nice and evenly. And then we're going to stitch along that edge. The entire time we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but you really don't have to think about that because the paper that you're sewing through is already all marked for that. So don't worry too much about that when you're putting these pieces together. All right, now you're just going to open that up, and we're going to attach our 3rd piece on there. So then we'll have half of our snowflake completed. So again, your white points are going in the middle, down in the center. So line those up, line it up along that edge. Again, pin or clip if you need to. I would use clips versus pins. I just find that they hold really nicely on the paper piecing since you're going through so many layers. Now we're just going to stitch just like we did before, and you will have half of your snowflake done. All right, I like to lay mine out, make sure everything looks good. Now this is what the back side looks like, and we've still got most of our paper pieces are still attached. You can take off the ones along the seam allowances again. And then you're going to do the same process and make the other half of your snowflake, and then we're going to put the 2 pieces together, and that's it. For this part, I'm definitely going to use some clips because it's gotten, much longer, so it's harder to hold it all together with my hands. So I lay the middles right sides together just like that, line up those edges. I always like to line up the center first and then work my way out on both sides, but everything, as long as you use that 1/4 inch seam allowance consistently, everything should match up nice and neat here. So I'm adding just like 3 or 4 clips. I start with one in the center and one went flying. And then I'm just going to add a couple more clips because we remove them pretty quickly as we go, but it just holds everything in place while we're stitching. So again, use that line on your paper as your guide and stitch down along that edge. All right, we're done sewing. I'm going to just tear off the paper along that seam allowance. It adds so much bulk in there. So I like to just tear those pieces off first, but then I can't take it. I got to see how this all looks. So we're going to open it up, and it is so cute. Look at how adorable that is. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And now we can tear off the rest of the paper. Because we tore off all those other pieces while we were assembling the ones that were sewn into the seam allowance, these pieces come off so easily. If it helps, like if you don't really have nails that are grabbing the paper, you can grab a tweezers or something else to help you grab, but these should come off really easily. So you just go ahead and tear off all that paper, go ahead and toss it. There's no need to save that for anything. And once you tear off your paper, I like to give it a good, neat press, but that's all there is to it, you guys. You just did some foundational paper piecing. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's so cute. Well, what'd you think? Was that easier than you thought? I know when I first started doing foundational paper piecing, I was intimidated. And it took a bit for my brain to wrap around the whole process. Or you're sewing on the front, your fabric's on the back. I get it. It can be confusing, but just practice. And the good thing about a pattern like this is it's all very repetitive because you need 6 of each piece to put the whole snowflake together. So I hope you had fun with this video. Don't get frustrated. Watch it again if you need to, as many times as you need to. Watch it over and over again, because once foundational paper piecing clicks, you are going to love it. And it is so much fun. And look at the precision that it gives you. So if you're a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist like me, give it a try, because I think you're really going to like it, because it does give you really nice, neat points. Everything matches up well. So give it a try. I think you're going to like it. And let me know how you do. I'd love to see what you guys make. I'm going to turn this into like a trivet for my table. It would make a really cute little throw pillow, like an accent pillow. You could add sides to it and make it into a block and then make it into a tote bag. I mean, there's so many things that you could do with this little pattern here. So have fun with foundational paper piecing. Don't give up. Like I said, watch the video over and over, because sometimes it just takes a little bit for our brain to grasp it because it's just different. So have fun, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be sure to follow along, because we've got more videos coming for you every single week. If you want to make another fun holiday project, I've got a great video for you right here.